really love the police characters, Grayson and Marcus, and their arrival. One of my personal, not to get political because it's not really what I'm getting at, but one of my philosophies is there is no system so perfect that you're not going to have workarounds. And that's from my experience in the Army. That it's like, you have this big, massive bureaucracy, and by the time it gets down to you from on high, it's probably pretty dysfunctional. So you're going to have to figure out how to make it work anyway within the system. And I love that Grayson, the female cop, who's voiced by the same actress from The Expanse, who's the UN intelligence chief, whose name I can't remember.
I was half expecting her to torture somebody.
Yeah. Exactly. But I love the relationship
for your voice.
Yeah. I love the professionalism between the two, and that normally this is the kind of problem they would solve together, but because of Vonder's personal stake, it's now insoluble, and we're left with that of this is going to erupt if he can't figure out a way out of it.
And maybe if he were less ethical, he would throw somebody
else,
pick a volunteer or volunteer someone. You're now going to suffer for this,
right?
Yeah. I kind of love his. He's like a chaotic good version of Fagin from Oliver Twist. That he's like the runner of street orphan thieves, only he actually does care about them and is trying to do good in his own, realistic way.
And story-wise, we've got the two things going on where if Xander would just sacrifice somebody, it sure looks like it would be better for everyone in Undercity. But we've got the evil, probably archvillain, who randomly decides to take Deckard, his kid thug, and use him as an experiment lab rat when he doesn't have to. Tiny turn for the life.
So Silco, that character, is one of the overarching antagonists of the show. What were y'all's first impressions of him as a character, out of curiosity?
He signals as a villain, right? He does everything but twist the mustache. Like first frame he's in, it's like, oh cool, it's the bad guy, so that was, and again, part of that I think is the visual medium, right? He's drawn with very angular lines, and the one glowing eye, that's usually a pretty good giveaway. That's right. At first, so the question that I am left with is, why did he have his Deckard, the kid? Why did he have the kid following Vander's kids? He said, because his first line is, I told you just to follow them. And now you got distracted, and now Vander's asking questions. Okay. So but he didn't know that they were the ones who were responsible for blowing up the building in Piltover, which meant that he didn't know that they were in on that heist, which meant that he didn't set them up on that heist. At this point, I'm going to go on the record and say, I am convinced that someone set them up on that heist, that entire heist was a setup. Don't confirm or deny. I want to find out.
I am also gonna make a guess. My guess is that he wanted something, or wanted to mess with the rich people who own that apartment/laboratory, and so he sent the person into the place with Little Man. And he didn't know he was going to get the kids to go. He thought he would get someone like Xander.
Vander.
And
it's a V.
Vander. I've been reading somebody else's thing where it was a Z. Okay. So
I actually think it's Vander. I've been pronouncing it wrong too. I think it's Vander, not Vander. I'm just doing my half-remembered German pronunciation of things. So, but go ahead.
If we get people making comments on the show, they can be like, we get it wrong again. Okay, so anyway, I think he planted the information and intentionally had his person, or maybe even himself, overpay and provide all these details because he maybe knows about the relationship with the overcity and the undercity, and he wants to break it. He did not know about the explosion because even he, in his evil geniusness, did not think that anybody would open that case and break one of the magic glowy rocks because they're really dangerous. And why would anyone do that if they had any idea what a magic glowy rock was? And why would they pick them up if they didn't know? Because he did not factor in children.
I don't know, because he had him. He said, "I told you to follow them," right? Which to me reads as if he specifically said, "Follow these kids," not stand here and wait for someone to come back from Piltover, whoever they may be. So I'm wondering if he wasn't trying to just get anything on Vander because there's some enmity there.
Or he wanted to collect info because he wanted them to be his next lab rats.
Or that, yeah. He's trying to use trying to get at Vander through the girls. That to me sounds more plausible than that he would send them after this score and not know about the explosive potential of the biggest piece of the score, story-wise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Though the Guardians make the statement that there'd be a lot of stuff in that laboratory and nobody would really know what, as if the people working there are constantly designing new weapons and technology, and they're
without saying what
kind.
Without saying what it is, you do get to find out a lot more about the folks who work in that laboratory and what they're up to. So I'm not going to say what it is, but you do get, that is something we explore. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Can we, if we have time, can we talk a little bit about the fight sequence at the beginning of the show too? Back when the kids are escaping from Piltover and they run into Decker and his thugs, I again, from a story writing perspective, this is something that I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'm totally going to write that down. So, because I'm totally going to use this at some point. With the character of Vi, I thought it was really interesting, her whole progression through that fight sequence, because here you have her at the beginning kind of getting her ass kicked, right? Like that beautiful slow motion shot of fist impacting face and like blood going out. Yeah, that's her face, right? And she's an adolescent girl fighting with a boy who is physically larger than she is in that scene, and she is getting the shit kicked out of her. And you see her being picked up and body slammed, and you see her little sister like watching and being really scared, and that's part of the reason that Powder runs away, and eventually you see Vi kind of like come online and with the help of her crew start kicking more ass and everything, and that's cool. But she's never like the dominant fighter in that whole like milieu until the very, very end, when Decker or whoever it is pulls out his knife and she looks at him and she says, "Do you want to see how this ends?" And it scares the shit out of him simply by like her demeanor. And so I thought that was really interesting, because what that says about the character is that she's scary, but she's scary because she can take a punch, and she's not intimidated by a blade. So what does that mean? Does that mean she's taken a life with a blade before, and she's, therefore blank about it? I don't know. That I'm probably what's the word? Projecting a little bit, like imagining maybe some stuff. But I thought that was really, really skillful character development just in that one sequence. And I'm looking forward to finding out more about her because of that.
I think I agree with you. It's a great moment in the show. And furthermore, the fact that these are adolescents dealing with adolescents, and just, in D&D terms, her charisma and her intimidate score are through the roof. and she used it properly. You know, that it's just like that kid.
But why does a teenage girl have that kind of intimidation stat? You know what I mean? What has she been through to get her there? Because that doesn't come out of nowhere, you know?
No, it doesn't. And that kid probably doesn't like her, even though she's young and impulsive, her understanding that this kid probably really doesn't want to either get killed or kill anyone, even though he's pulling out a blade because he was embarrassed. So her correct reading of that is interesting too. Another thing, coming off the fight, you have Powder gets chased off by one of the other thugs.
She's running with a rucksack, and somehow she gets far enough ahead that he's around the corner. And I don't know how your academy experiences are, but only a very few times at the Naval Academy do you run with things, because not everybody has to be a Marine. But my experience was there is no way I'd be able to put a block between myself and someone who doesn't have a sack. I'm a foot shorter than them, and so my legs are short. So that was scared to run that fast.
Yeah, absolutely. That was pure adrenaline to be able to do that.
And adrenaline can reduce your 100-meter dash by a second or two. That's true. So she ends up having to ditch their ill-gotten gains, most of them anyway, as we find out later. And
he doesn't have a rucksack.
Yeah. Well, and I found that set up for me. So very often I get annoyed with a story when it manufactures false tension with misunderstanding, because the misunderstanding is because people are stupid. You know, it's not a situation where two people have a misunderstanding and it's really realistic and you can see yourself in either person's shoes, seeing it the way they see it. So you end up with tension because Powder has to ditch the goods, you know, the magic glowy rocks.
Right.
And they stole, and the rest of the crew except for the one in her pocket.
Which is going to be trouble later.
No, not at all. Don't worry about it. It won't matter at all.
She'll just plug it into a wall. It'll be our night light.
It'll be fine.
Butterflies around it. It'll be fine.
It won't have tragic and unforeseen consequences, I promise.